At 1400 hours on September 29, 2019, Comrade Ian, who had finished his day's work, boarded the Fuxing Emu home with blessings for his mother's 70th birthday. However, the moment he sat down, the scenery in front of him changed. Was supposed to sit on the bottom of the high-speed rail seat, but did it on a desk and chair, and the surrounding scenes were also changed from inside the train to a high school classroom. Well, it's still a history class. Forced G. Okay, so who can summarize the impact of the rail elevator we are talking about today on the global economy? Other students. Ian. Who am I? Where am I? What's the situation now? Classmate Ian, let's talk about it. Classmate Ian. Classmate Ian. Ian Vasti. The perception of danger from creatures directly tells Ian's current identity. Hi, sir, I'm sorry you just wandered. Answer the questions. I don't know what you asked just now. The impact of rail elevators on the global economy. How would I know? Turned and looked up at the sky. Fuck groove, there are loops, orbital loops that haven't been made at the end of the next door. There is still a big gong growing on this ring. A big yellow gong that can be seen on the ground. I seem to know where it is. It's really gratifying. A fart, how do I know what affected me, a primitive man more than 200 years ago? How do you know what kind of plane you guys will be engaged in the future? Support up. Do it again. Wait. I seem to know. Before the teacher's patience reached the critical point, Comrade Ian finally spoke. After the solar power generation facilities were put into use, the old trade relations between the powers and the third world countries almost completely collapsed. The oil-producing countries in the Middle East lost almost their only export commodities, and at the same time the national economy entered a state of collapse. A large number of jobs have been created through the construction of rail elevators, and the economy has taken off completely after monopolizing the energy industry. Almost, but don't listen to the gossip, the rail elevator has not been put into use yet, although there are rumors that. Ian didn't listen to the following words, he only noticed that it hasn't been put into use yet. Yet is still a few decades away from the beginning of the plot. I now assume that the group of people waiting for fools at the age of 16 will open up the Gundam. I am afraid that someone will not be 40 or 50, and I will open an egg-like Gundam. Ian went home desperately. It should be said that his body was desperate and brought him home. Where is this? Where is the ceiling that I don't recognize? Ian is lying on the bed with a dazed expression. Then, with a mechanical sound in the brain, the plugin was paid. System initialization completed. Start the main program. No other intelligent creatures around the host are detected. No monitor material is detected around the host. Memory input program is on standby. Input start. Joe has a sack. Then Ian was stunned by the memory flow. The next morning, Ian with a sore face looked at the system UI in front of him. Smart Mechanic Learning Assistant V10 Theoretical Study Practical Operation Body Strengthening Simulation Training. Then the last three options are grayed out and cannot be selected. In Theoretical Study, all knowledge is from 2019 and before. System, why is the knowledge I can learn is from my time? The host has not learned the relevant knowledge to unlock the theoretical knowledge of the current era. If the system provides relevant knowledge without the basis, the host will one day become a monkey who only presses a button. But I can learn from you. Please learn the basic theory by yourself. Also, why is it all military theory? What ballistics signal science? This machine is a military system. What does it mean to sort by objects? Literal meaning. After changing the classification mode, the theoretical data disappeared, and it became 1130 near anti-gun, AK-130 naval gun, Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, AR-15 series rifle, Tiger-type armored vehicle. It's really a military system. Ian saw the cold sweat all come down. After continuing, turn the pages of Julian ballistic missile and Dongfeng ballistic missile. Out of curiosity, Ian opened the information of Dongfeng Express and looked at it. A few hours later, Ian came back to his senses. Even if I understand, whether it's the theory of navigation system or the theory of warhead manufacturing, I understand. The system has strengthened the host's brain, and the host's body itself has excellent brain quality. Look at the textbooks summarized by the system. Naturally can understand related theories. Crossed off the study materials, Ian rubbed his temples. The common impact of the Traversal Plus system has not passed yet, and a lot of weapon theory has been stuffed into him, which makes him very headache. Just wanted to make the system disappear, but found that the practical operation options can be selected. After clicked on, the consciousness entered a pure white space. And in front of the UI, there are a bunch of thumbnails of Dongfeng Express. I clicked on the Dongfeng 31 logo, and a large cylindrical container more than 10 meters long appeared in front of my eyes. Fuck. System, can this be taken out? Not for the time being, but the host can try to assemble in reality. Then how do I practice? The host of the relevant tools provided by the system can try to disassemble the physical object, or use the machine tools and raw materials provided by the system for processing and manufacturing. However, it is not recommended that the host directly start disassembly. The system recommends that you start learning from the introduction of fitter. Fuck. In addition, if the host does not leave the house within 3 minutes, the host will be late for class. I got a big slot. Ian Hikari put on clothes and Yazi went out. When I arrived at school, Ian realized that this is my journey. My girlfriend can't see my parents can't see my parents, and I can't go back home. Shouldn't I be excited? Have the host heard of the psychology of resilience? Eve. When the host's brain is strengthened, it also strengthens the host's soul and psychology, preventing the host from irrational behavior. Then can I go home? Yes, the host can develop a cross-world engine, then the host can go home. Can this be done too? The host has passed through the system. Oh. Why do I remember everything after reading the textbook? You have been strengthened. Oh. Lying in bed at night, Ian calmed down to sort out the memory of this body. Name, Ian Vasti. Nationality, AEU. Both parents died, and they were killed in a terrorist attack on the construction of an anti-rail elevator. Left a small amount of assets in a house that are enough to survive. I don't have many friends, but I am also estranged because of the reticence of my parents after their deaths. Should I say that it is lucky or unfortunate? This body is rounded to the nearest one. Smoothly rubbed his hair into a chicken coop. There's nothing to worry about anyway, go to the People's Revolutionary Federation after graduation. Then Ian applied online for international students from several science and technology universities and the National Defense University of the National Revolutionary Federation of the People's Republic of China, and asked about the policy for foreigners to take the college entrance examination. We welcome any foreign friends who are interested in participating in socialist construction. Please go to the relevant department to go through the immigration and enrollment procedures. After graduating from high school, Ian happily changed property and immigrated to the People's Republic of China, Shu Province. This hot pot is so fragrant. Then, Ian went to the local education bureau with a hot pot smell. We, the People's Revolutionary Federation of China, do not recognize AEU's college entrance examination results. Please choose a high school to retake the third year of high school to take the college entrance examination or study on your own to participate in the adult college entrance examination. I thought that the college entrance examination in my previous life would be played year after year. I also thought that it has been 2 centuries. Comrade Ian couldn't help but sway. It should be counseled. Ian still came to Shuta Foreign Language Middle School, and once again accepted the baptism of high school repetition, again. It doesn't seem to be difficult. Holding the 146 monthly math papers, Ian is almost akimbo. Host, you have been strengthened. To shut up local understanding. Sure enough, I am a genius, ha 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 ha. Okay, already akimbo. Time flies. When the sun and the moon are like a shuttle, 9 months are fleeting. Ian has been living the days of listening to classes during the day, brushing exam questions, and sleeping and dismantling equipment at night, especially as Ian discovered that after learning the current weapon theory by himself, the system unlocked information on new equipment such as the 60mm Gatling gun for S, single molecule sword for S, and high energy oscillating knife for S. Ian is more engaged in learning. Learning makes me happy. The college entrance examination is over, and Ian also got the admission notice from the National Defense Science and Technology University as he wished. With the admission notice, Ian wanted to be a soldier in the military academy in his previous life, but he was overweight and had poor eyesight and lack of intelligence. I finally got what I wanted in this life. AD 22708, Ian brought a suitcase of clothes and bedding and a semi-truck's gunpla against the moving company's truck and walked on the road to Hunan province. It's strange that Joe is called a conscience enterprise in the military model. What is that big hand? Antique model. E-Gundam Worldview S is a military model and there is nothing wrong with it. The 260th anniversary venue limited edition of the B1 corner donkey at home. It's really hard to describe. Ian bought a 40 square meter apartment next to the school and placed the bunch of models. With the expectation of college life in the next 4 years, Ian walked into the university with the admission notice and suitcase. Senior sister senior senior slash senior E. Suddenly there is no motivation. In short, I went through the admission procedures. When I arrived at the dormitory, I found that one of my roommates had arrived. Looks like a serious fur. Makarov Sminov, hello, and Ian Vesti, hello. Both shook hands. Then there was no more information, and they packed their luggage and went. Is really serious. After finishing packing things, Ian washed a bit and was about to go outside for food. Seeing the flat glasses that another roommate left on the sink, he brought it with a ghost. Then, looking at the combination of chicken coop head and glasses in the mirror, a question I asked more than a year ago came to my lips. System, the machine is here. Do you know which world I am in? The machine understands. The world code is XXXXXXXX. According to the subjective perception of the host, it is generally called up to 00. Then my body is a plot character. Yes, Ian Vasti, the maintenance man of celestial equipment, the original EOS designer, accidentally discovered the body of the goddess of justice in AD 2288 and was absorbed into the celestial organization, and then I am going to university in the National Revolutionary Federation. Where do I go to find the goddess of justice? Please find out by yourself. This machine is just a learning machine. Hey! Reply. You have the ability to drop the chain. You reading www.uuganshu.com. You have the ability to open the door. Forget it, let's learn how to make progress every day first, and see if the excellent technology can attract the devas. Ding! You have a new system notification. Congratulations to the host for discovering the main mission. As soon as the mission has joined the celestial organization. Don't stop me, I'm going to beat you to the street system. I worked with me for more than 2 years to study hard and flop back and forth in the prologue, right? There is no reward for posting an egg. Ding! You have a new system notification. Congratulations to the host for discovering the main mission. The mission is to participate in the celestial organization. Mission reward, a set of Ptolemy 2 drawings. Mission completion, not yet completed. You are really a clever ghost. Ahem. Exceed the prize. So on September 1st, AD 2070, Ian finally discovered that the historical car wheel had already driven into the ditch resolutely. This year of yours is the most special one I have ever brought. There are candidates from AEU and exchange students from Maoxiong. I don't know why you came, and I don't know what identity you once had, and I don't know your future. What heights will it reach? But now you are all new recruits, and all cheer me up. Watch me demonstrate. Put your feet 60 degrees apart, keep your legs straight, and place your thumb on the second joint of your index finger, and your hands will hang down naturally. Keep your abdomen, chest, head up, look forward, and your shoulders back. Good to remember the essentials: military posture for 2 hours, look to the right. Take a rest, stand at attention. Under the scorching sun, the campus was full of students in military training teams. In the team, Ian was glaring and stood upright. The instructor looked at the foreign friend with satisfaction. He thought it would be a sting. I thought that foreigners were unorganized and disciplined, but after training, I discovered that they were standing upright, and their military posture was more standard than that of local students. And the Makarov, who came from the Bear, came from a military family, and did very well. In the whole team, these two are the best. However, in fact, Ian just let the system lock the action, and his consciousness sneaked into the system to learn to deduce mechanical knowledge. Fortunately, Dongfeng didn't dismantle it at the time. It was like welding a detonator and saw bulb. It took more than a month to learn to disassemble the 19 TYPE rifle, and a whole year to study the near anti-aircraft gun. This is still on the premise of remembering to remember, are the academicians of the Chinese Academy of Sciences all monsters? Okay, everything is there, take a rest. Seeing that you are all standing tired, let you take a break from activities. Feeling the smiles of other students, looking at the instructor's meaningful smile, Ian, who had been in military training, and Makalov, who had been trained by his father, were choked for a long time. It's over. Everyone has it, stand at attention. Turn right and run. Yi-o-yu-yi. Yi-o-yu-yi. Come on. Let me see your limits. No potential yet. Run out if you have any, if you don't, I'll bring my dog over and cheer for you. Most of the trainees who have run for nearly 10 laps have been unable to maintain their normal running posture. They are all tired dead dogs. Only Ian and Makarov are still running normally. The only difference is Makarov. He started to gasp, and Ian was almost as if he had just started running. The medical staff on the side stopped the instructor. Are those two people running together? How come they are like okay people, don't release water just because they are foreigners? The instructor turned around and glanced at the two Ian. No, I'm staring at it, I ran together, it seems that I picked up a good seedling again. Found that the instructor was standing down, and the few people who were about to fall behind couldn't run between them. They lay on the ground and gasped and didn't want to move. When other people saw that they had stopped, they stopped in 2s and 3s to rest, and then were forced to walk a circle with a kick and kick by the medical staff on standby next to them before they stopped. At this time, Ian and Sergei had already ran one more lap before they realized that the large group had stopped. Then he was pressed by the medical staff to measure the blood pressure and heartbeat. Lao Zhang, are you sure these two soldiers ran along? These two soldiers are the same as not running except that their blood sugar is a little low. Run away, I have been staring at them, now I found the treasure. Their files are sealed up, treated as second-level secrets, and then reported to their superiors. Understand? The People's Revolutionary Federation has a vast territory and abundant resources. It is not surprising that there is a natural and special physique in the huge population base. At most, it is rare. It seems that the student surnamed Yi is a foreigner? Ian asked the system about his physical condition. Why do I have such a good physical strength in the system? The host has been strengthened. But I remember what you said strengthened my mind. The host's body strengthening is caused by the accumulation of micro-enhancement over the past 2 years. This machine does not want the host to die young due to physical health problems. Then what is my current physical fitness level? The pinnacle of mankind at this stage. In other words, I can run as fast as Bolt. Theoretically, it can. Actually, the host has not received relevant training. Back to the dormitory, Ian threw his body on the bed, preparing to continue studying the rapid-fire naval gun theory in the system, but seeing Makarov's tough and serious bearish face, he asked in a ghostly manner, "Lao Ma, do you have any brothers or sisters in your family?" "There is a younger brother named Sergei." Then he took out a small book from the drawer. After opening it, there was a photo in it. It was a group photo of a big bear and a small bear. "I saw the little bear. Look at Makarov's firm but visibly softened face, which looks like the little bear's face in the previous life." Ian murmured silently in his heart, "Does this count as crossing and meeting his deceased brother?" At this time, the remaining two roommates also dragged their exhausted bodies back to the dormitory. They were interrupted in a brief communication, and Makarov and Ian both went back to bed to rest. Consciousness entered the system space again, opened the rapid-fire cannon theory and started learning. Not long after, Ian consciousness withdrew from the learning system. Why is the rapid-fire gun theory lacking so much content? Doesn't the host realize that the near-defense gun is also a rapid-fire gun? Furthermore, the Close-in gun is a multi-module cooperative weapon system. The rapid-fire gun is only one module of the system. The host should have noticed that when you are learning the Close-in gun technology, you have also learned the small-caliber rapid-fire gun, direction machine, and radar technology, photoelectric tracking technology and other aspects of knowledge, so it takes a full year for the host to fully grasp the theory of near-aircraft defense. I really didn't realize. The second week after the end of the military training, the trainees began to get in touch with the professional knowledge of their profession. The military MS design major that Ian applied for includes engineering mechanics, MS structure and drawing, MS electrical engineering foundation, MS and space engineering materials, MS principal, MS welding process, MS design basis, MS CAD/CAM, MS production design, MS construction technology, MS assembly engineering fundamentals, MS inspection, and other dozens of comprehensive majors. The MSJ-04 decree type is the main MS of our country. The armor is heavier than the AEU's Thug type and combined armor. The main armament is. Ian looked at the teaching materials in his hand with the PDA, and the corners of his eyes twitched constantly. Sure enough, something is wrong. Such a running slower than tanks, front projection is larger than tanks, armor is thinner than tanks, and more expensive than tanks. How did things become the main force of the army? Seeing the actual combat documentary behind, Ian somewhat understands why MS will be installed. MS is rapid-fire artillery fired from a commanding height, and one round hit the weak top armor of the tank, exploding the tank into fireballs one after another. The 18-meter-high decree held a 20-meter-long spear and knocked down an 8-story building with one blow. The soldiers who couldn't escape desperately fired MS with rifles in vain. There is also the water cup in the bunker. The gradual strengthening of the ripples on the water surface contrasts with the faces of the surrounding soldiers gradually becoming desperate. Also, for the construction of friendly positions, MS is too useful. Scratching the handle of the spear on the ground and strengthening it a little makes it a qualified trench. And many more. The sense of oppression in the battle is far from what tanks can bring. Let's take a look at the next generation MSJ-06 Iron Man of the People's Revolutionary Federation of China. It was established in 2259. After more than 10 years of development, the 59-element Iron Man has now entered the stage of small batch installation. Its main weapons have. Ian heard this, and the corners of his mouth twitched more seriously. Thinking of the endless improved versions of the Iron Man in the previous life animation and the long vitality that was still active on the battlefield when he finally played Els. Is it 59? With the deepening of the course, the system finally unlocked the first complete MS blueprint, the legal style. Ian can't wait to start the dismantling research of MS's most fashionable military equipment. Then, when he began to study his weapons and equipment, Ian's Tuco soul could no longer stop. The 155mm long-barreled rapid-fire gun, with a rate of fire of 300 rounds per minute, with 60 rounds of ammunition, is suspended from the head of the main body, like Pinocchio's nose, with a long barrel protruding from the body. Kinchu's high-explosive shells, armor-piercing shells, high-explosive shells weighing 100 kilograms, the maximum range of 20 kilometers. UU reading www.uuganshu.com considering the elevation angle to limit the range of about 5 kilometers. The armor-piercing projectile weighs 105 kilograms, the semi-armor-piercing warhead, the charge is 50 kilograms, and the 1 kilometer penetration depth is 300 millimeters homogeneous steel plate. What kind of black technology? I found out the data of the W90 Type 203mm howitzer in the system, and compared the data of the Mk71203mm naval gun. NEMA's rate of fire is going to the sky, right? Optionally armed with a 200mm 25 caliber low-pressure rapid-fire gun, with a rate of fire of 350 rounds/min. This weapon is not compatible with this armor. Through the simulation of the system, Ian found that while using high-explosive bombs, the statistic can blast off the statistic's waist by hitting 12 rounds at will within the range. Then beat your hand and break your hand, beat your leg and break your leg, hit the upper body, and the driver was directly shocked to death. The armor-piercing projectile can directly hit a pair within 1 kilometer. Optional armament, 600mm low-recoil rocket launcher, optional high-explosive projectile. The projectile weighs 1.5 tons, contains 1 ton of high-explosive gunpowder. Semi-armor-piercing projectiles for anti-fortifications, the projectile weighs 2 tons, contains 500 kilograms of high-explosive gunpowder, 5 kilometers. It can penetrate 15 meters of reinforced concrete structures. Mom! Your rate of fire is so high, the armor is so fragile, it's no wonder that there are only 2 kinds of shells, and great efforts can do miracles. Then I saw a lot of guided artillery shells, extended range artillery shells and air-to-air artillery shells. It seems that the MS of the 2 countries are crispy and variable machines. Ian's mouth pulled out a sinister curve. I don't know what they think of the 600mm Type 3 projectiles of the enhanced rocket extended range power version installed by the MGMS. As the course progresses, it seems that Ian's lower limit has also become bottomless. In a blink of an eye, Ian has reached the 3rd year of studying at the National University of Defense Technology. Whether it is the EMS-related theories in reality, the classical weapon theory in the system, and the new theories deduced based on the theory in reality, Ian thinks that he has reached a certain height. The research and development of an innovative artillery system can begin. So he really started to design. A few months later, after referring to the design of several classic artillery guns such as the legal long-barreled rapid-fire gun and the Oerlikon 35mm anti-aircraft gun, Ian designed the first weapon in his life, 155mm 70 times caliber revolving rapid-fire gun, with an estimated rate of fire of 700 rounds per minute, with options for anti-aircraft missile heads, anti-aircraft armor-piercing shots, anti-air delay/impact high-explosive rounds, armor-piercing rounds, broken armor rounds, and armor-piercing round weighting for more than 10 kinds of ammunition, is the hero of the rapid-fire gun. In addition, the revolving mechanism is removed and replaced with a more streamlined loader, the rate of fire is reduced to 2 rounds per second, and it can also be installed in the tank turret. The system, can it simulate the artillery I tested? Yes, the blueprint is being deduced, please wait a moment. For some reason, Ian heard the comfort of the pigs raised at home are finally resuscitated and start growing cabbage from the calm electronic synthesis sound of this unit needs assistance that has remained unchanged for thousands of years in his own system. Several hours later, the system finally finished the test. The artillery designed by the host has a high degree of completion, but there are still some parts of the structure that need to be improved. The improvement suggestions are as follows. Listening to the system's unwavering voice, Ian also began to modify the design drawings. Watching the red parts on the 3D design drawing in my mind turn green one by one. After the system's review, Ian's mouth gradually appeared like an old mother. Smile. The final test result shows that the limit rate of fire is 900 rounds/minute, the recommended rate of fire is 750 rounds/minute, and the muzzle velocity is 1600 m/s. Under the limit rate of fire, the rifling will be worn out after 500 rounds, and after 700 rounds, the gun will be fired. The tube melts or explodes. The recommended rate of fire will be extended to 1,200 and 2,000 rounds. Short shots of 30 rounds will be extended to 5,000 rounds. Fusing will not occur, and the incidence of blasting accidents will be less than 1 in 10,000. The artillery system has passed the system review and can be considered as a weapon system that can be put into use. Would you like to upload a blueprint? Can you design and upload it yourself? Yes, please name the host, the default name, unnamed project 1. Where did you come from? Photoshop. This is tradition, well, named 15570 revolving rapid fire weapon module name confirmation, uploaded. Seeing the weapon of his own design appeared in the system database, Ian was very happy and even wanted to dance. The roommates who came back from the meal opened the door and found Ian dancing on all fours, dancing street dance that I didn't know where to learn. They were stunned at the door. This one really jumped up. The embarrassing boundary of silence. What? 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 Wong. Ahem, I'm done with that canon, can you review it for me? Done. Makarov and the remaining two roommates looked at Ian in shock. They had known that Ian was designing the artillery by himself. After all, the four people had brainstormed and forced each other in the past few months, but it was only a private ruckus, and they had never thought that the artillery was still finished. One day, Ian turned around and opened the drawings before the system audit. Come on, take a look at it for me. The three roommates squeezed Ian away in an instant and drew in front of the computer. Even Makarov, who has always been steady, flushed with excitement. After all, the birth of this child also has three of them. The three people were arguing and arguing occasionally when problems were discovered, and Ian would call up the correction suggestions given by the system for comparison. A few days later, the problems found by the system were found by the three people 7 or 8, and quite a few problems. They all gave their own satisfactory modification plan. System, what is their plan? The relative host solution is better, but the system gives the best choice. Why are they so self-confident? Maybe their instinctual solutions are excellent. This machine was selected through an exhaustive method. More than 5 million shooting experiments were carried out in the actual operation space and the optimal modification plan was finally concluded. Puff, cough 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 cough. Almost choked to death by Ian with a dumbfounded look. You shouldn't you say that this machine uses data calculations and draws conclusions from ancient and modern drawings. Practice is the only criterion for testing truth. The host should have learned this sentence in junior high school political textbooks. You win. With the drawings revised with his roommate, Ian is going to find the artillery design teacher in the school to show his face, and see if he can use it as a stepping stone to book a scientific research institute or military industry enterprise in advance. Putting the U-disc in his pocket, and just about to go out, suddenly remembered that Makarov was from a military family, and maybe he could help find a more suitable person. Lao Ma, can you find an expert for artillery? I want to see how this artillery looks in the eyes of experts. Not sure, I'll ask about home. After speaking, he picked up his mobile phone and dialed the number at home. Hello, please transfer Colonel Smirnov, I am his son who is looking for my father if he has something to do, thank you. Well, it seems that Uncle Xiang's family is rich in colonels. After Lao Ma emphasized that he was also involved and that there was no major problem under the review of 4 outstanding students, Lao Ma's father agreed to find his old friend in Narinko and find an expert who is not busy to evaluate it. Not long after, a mailbox was sent to Lao Ma's cell phone. After Ian sent the design drawings, in order to celebrate the completion of the first design drawing, 4 people went to the hot pot outside the school. And in the office of a certain academician of North Industries, which they can't see, a group of uncle academicians saw the first work of this student practicing hands. Academician of the Academy of Sciences of the People's Republic of China and artillery expert, Academician Wang, today asked a few old classmates and comrades in his office to reminisce about the tragic years. At this time, a representative of the garrison of North Industries called and said that there was an old comrade's doll in the military academy. The classmates thought about a new gun and would like to ask someone to comment on it. Academician Wang took a look at the old expert in this room, and he gave it to him. Called the secretary to take a few military tablets, and let the old comrades look at the works of military school dolls. Open the drawing. The old man is still very surprised. The structure is reasonable and clear, many structures have applied relatively mature technology. He cheerfully gave a comment, the dolls nowadays are not simple. The more I look at it, the more I get more frightened. The office where I was talking and laughing has also become silent. After reading the drawings page by page, I went to look at the CAD model and then went back to compare the drawings. After repeated inspections, the old man raised his head and looked at the same serious old comrades. He sighed again. The dolls nowadays are not simple. Director Liu, I will send you a copy of the fire certificate, and test it after 10 trial production. Several hours later, the artillery test ended. Several old experts looked at the report in their hands with smiles. Although there are flaws, they are still an excellent weapon. The most important thing is to give it for nothing. The general artillery module can be boarded on ships, tanks, MS, or fortifications. Excellent versatility can save a lot of money. At the same time, a variety of ammunition designs also opened the door to a new world for them. Glancing at each other, nodded to confirm each other's thoughts. Finally focused on an old man, Lao Zhang, where you took the doctor, what do you think? What else can I see? After the drawing is eaten, Lao Wang takes the lead in applying for the project and then improving it. Send someone to bring the drawing master over for confidential procedures, and the 4 dolls brought over to talk about graduation distribution. Let's go and work. Go with. 10 minutes after the old men left, the school's gendarmerie knocked on the door of Ian's dormitory. The students wearing only pants saw the heavily armed gendarmerie in a mess. Did you send a document to Academician Wang of the Academy of Sciences of the People's Republic of China? The 4 nodded. Has the information been disseminated to other people? The 4 shook their heads. Is the only data stored on this computer? The 4 nodded. Well, you have 10 minutes to dress neatly. Academician Wang hopes to have an interview with you. After 10 minutes, we will gather downstairs and the helicopter will arrive at the school airport in 15 minutes. Then the leading military police put the computer host into the 3-proof transportation box. Gone. Fuck, this stepping stone turned into a broken C4. Ian is too messy. Makarov's determined face was also messy. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com has always acted steadily. He finally did something unreliable. He turned on the phone and sent a message to his dad. Dad, your son, me. We were miserable by you, we were taken away by the military police, and we had time to find people. Makarov Smirnov has written absolutely. Then the 4 dressed up and boarded the helicopter heading to North Industries. At 10 o'clock the next day, the 4 people who took a short rest in the guest house sat in the academician's office. At the door stood 2 guards from Mao Xiang's division commander and 2 military policemen. Sitting inside the door, they asked their superiors for leave overnight to see the lively Colonel Smirnov, Uncle Bear, and the old men who had a tea party in the office yesterday. Smirnov is more embarrassed, because he threw the phone in the bedroom and left after sending the message, which scared his dad. The old Smirnov, who didn't know what happened in the middle, couldn't get through when he called his son again, and then went to the old comrade Arms, but it was limited to the confidentiality regulations and could not be said, but that the confidential person was taken to North Industries. Although Smirnov was relieved to hear that his son hadn't gone to jail, he was really curious about what his child had done, so he came home and brought his baby bear. "Little classmate, come and tell the old man, who designed this gun." The other three people turned their heads to stare at Ian. Following the line of sight, everyone in the room stared at Ian. "The report was designed by me at the beginning. I discussed with 3 classmates and improved a lot of structure, and the 3 classmates also contributed a lot." "How much do you think your own work accounts for?" 80%. "Then other people can call it assistance or check for deficiencies." "Report, yes." "Then let's discuss your graduation assignment." "Little students, let's discuss your graduation assignment. You designed a modular artillery system by yourself, and based on our experience and trial production tests, this gun, although there are still flaws, is already usable, and after improvement by a few of our elders, it should be fine. It's installed. This is a great achievement, but you are still a student, and this credit cannot be given out. So after you graduate, you come to work as a researcher under my hand and continue to work hard. It should be your credit that will fall on you. As for the 3 of you, it is also a rare experience to assist in the development of a usable weapon system. Can you come here directly after graduation and start as a grassroots researcher?" The 4 heads are almost out of shadow. Can the academician's recommendation be accepted? Besides, Norinco is also one of the largest companies in the RCRC. Opportunities can be met but not sought. "That's it, you 3 will disband, let's talk to Xiaoi." The 3 of them got up and left with the old Smirnov bear. "Come on, little student, talk about your development ideas." Was silent for a few seconds, calmed down, and clarified his thoughts. "The MS currently equipped in our country are all MS on the road, while the AEU is equipped with variable gram flying MS. Both the legal and Ironman anti-aircraft weapons only have 30 mm cannons and 200 mm smoothbore guns, which have very poor air-to-air efficiency. It's not even as efficient as calling the Air Force fighter for support. The air defense missiles carried by the accompanying infantry are difficult to threaten the armor of the MS because of insufficient charge. So I want to develop a gun that can cope with the flying Ms. Oh? One artillery can't change our country's weak MS against the air. Then there are 4 doors." Took out his mobile phone and found the draft design of the Iron Man air defense model made at that time. "My gun is mainly designed for this special MS for air defense. It is equipped with the next-generation radar search and tracking system, the next-generation optical sighting system, the next-generation fire control system and other electronic equipment. Armed with 4 155 mm rapid-fire guns, 16 heavy-duty anti-aircraft ATACMS missile, each hand holding a water-cooled 60 mm 6 TUBE liquid-cooled Vulcan gun integrated with a carbon steel knife for close combat." Academician Wang took the phone, looked at the continuously rotating 3D model, and discussed with the old comrades next to him. "Mom, I don't know if the anti-aircraft Iron Man has set up a project at this time, and I will be killed as a spy after the project is approved." "Well, Xiaoi, do you have ideas for the next-generation radars you mentioned?" "Of course not." Ian widened his eyes and said confidently. The innocent look further explained the problem. "I haven't learned relevant knowledge. It's just that Ian's inner thoughts are, of course I do. The Nirantakanen theory includes radar and optical scanning and tracking technology. Of course, I designed a gun that has been watched. Then the radar will definitely be dissected." So too." Academician Wang was obviously choked. "Then I will distribute the other modules to other research groups for development." Academician Wang shook his head, obviously a bit regretful. "You go back and rest for a while, and in the afternoon. Actually, I still have a few ideas, it's just a concept now. Ian burned as the soul of death. The rail elevator uses Defense MS, the Iron Man Spider, and replaced the legs with a cable car that can move on the steel cable outside the rail elevator. The structure, the hand armament, is replaced by a linear rifle powered by a rail elevator, and the shoulder is equipped with 2 sets of 6 missile launchers. There is also a long-range artillery sniper Iron Man, equipped with a 300mm 70 caliber cannon. The Iron Man is used in the water, and the propeller is changed to an underwater turboprop, equipped with multiple torpedo launchers and small linear guns. There is also a scout-type Iron Man, carrying. Stop, stop, you can't get along with the Iron Man, why are all Iron Man changes? How did you think about it so much? Improving the 5-9 style is a tradition, and people always need a hobby. Come on, I'll find someone to show you the idea, you go back first. Forget it, I will take you to the cafeteria to have something to eat. Let's talk. Your gun, shouldn't you just want to install it on the MS? This gun has a high degree of modularity, versatility, and the design should not be bad. Yet eating the canteen food provided by the academician, Ian, who was unable to speak, said that fortifications, naval ships, spaceships, and tanks can be used by replacing some of the modules. Now every service artillery is not universal. It's wasted. What's more, the Tiger-type transport ship is now unarmed, which is too strange as a military ship. In the near future, the universe should be flying all over the sky. At least add a Nirantikkanen. It's such a reason, a research group also thought about this problem. They designed a 4-mounted cosmic turret for your gun. It should be put into experimentation today and tomorrow. Buzzing, buzzing. Took out his mobile phone, academician Wang read a message, well, the turret was built for the live fire experiment this afternoon. The new type of shells you designed have also built samples. Let's try it out in the afternoon. I just wanted to ask, why the conversion of drawings and objects here is so fast. With 3D printing, most parts can be shaped by 3D printing. Long experience. Xiao Yi, you have more things to learn in the future. The old man saw that Ian, a suspected genius, asked a rookie-level common sense question, and he grinned happily. Called the secretary to drive the two to the shooting experiment site. The research team that designed the spaceship-borne Nirantikkanen has placed the finished turret on the experiment site. Several large forks were placed on the distant mountain, on both sides. There are trucks with drones parked, and dozens of armor plates for shooting and testing are lined up at the foot of the mountain. The shooting experiment started 15 minutes later, the shooting range was cleared, and irrelevant personnel were evacuated quickly. An announcement and an alarm bell reverberated over the field. The shooting experiment began, with the first high-explosive shells, secondary guided shells, and then loaded in sequence, anti-air shots, delayed/collision high-explosive shells, armor-piercing shells, sub-caliber shelling armor-piercing shells, and shattered shells. Target the number 1 target on the hillside, single shot, fire. A few seconds after the sound of a cannon, the distant target exploded a ball of fire, and a few seconds later there was a loud noise. Hit, damage assessment. The secondary bomb is loaded, the laser pointer is activated, the target is at target number 2, and the muzzle is pointed at target number 1, and shoot. The same sound of a cannon, the cannonball flew out, but the difference is that the cannonball turned an obvious angle and hit another target. Hit, damage assessment. Sub-bullet loading, target, flying MS with armor plate, shooting. This time the shell was detonated 3 meters in front of the armor plate. Hundreds of arrow-shaped warheads that flew out penetrated the armor plate in front of it and shot the armor plate into a honeycomb. Hit, damage assessment. Sub-bullet is loaded, target number 2 flying MS with armor plate, shooting. Well, this time the target armor plate was blown up with a huge hole. Sub-bullet reload, target Iron Man armor plate, shoot. The armor-piercing projectile penetrated 5 layers of Iron Man's main armor plate at a distance of 1 kilometer, that is, 150 millimeters armor. 5. The target of the secondary bomb remains unchanged. Shoot. The shelling armor-piercing projectile penetrated the 18th floor this time. The R&D team onlookers next door made a sound of sucking air conditioning. Sub-bomb loading. UU reading www.yuncha.com. Target, large armor block. Shooting the goal this time is an armored steel block of 1.5 meters in length, width, and height. A flame exploded on the surface of the steel block, and the Sharpied people noticed that the flame came out from behind the steel block. Hit, damage assessment, breakdown. The sound of gritted teeth and air conditioning came again from the next door. Sub-bullet reload, target 1000 mm armor plate, shoot. This time, a large piece of armor shattered behind the armor plate, and the flying fragments were found hundreds of meters away. Continuous firing preparation, loading high explosive shells, target number 1 target position, 30 rounds, shooting. The huge sound was built into one area, and it converged into a huge OM. On the faces of the crowd of onlookers. The distant explosion was concentrated in a small area. Hit, scatter 5 dense bits. At this time, the research team who was onlookers next door had already left, and Ian was a little puzzled. Why do people over there look so bad? Because of the Iron Man they designed, the weapons they will face in the future are up to 200 mm 25 times caliber smoothbore guns, rather than such super specification weapons. Not surprisingly, their project had to be redone, and Iron Man's armor was reconsidered like this. After all, in front of this gun, the Iron Man is not much better than the paper. Then he saw that the target drone was torn into pieces by 30 anti-aircraft shotguns, and the turret fired randomly against the air. The shells eventually hit the same point under the guidance of the laser pointer. And no matter how hard the drone struggles, it can't escape the pursuit of guided artillery shells, and it will eventually be blown to pieces. In the final test, even a decommissioned decree was torn to pieces in a 10-second burst of armor-piercing projectiles. Ian finally realized that the lower limit of the artillery he designed was a bit low. In his junior year, Ian finally started to learn the general theory of MS design, and then, something strange appeared, a material that seemed to appear unexpectedly but supported almost all the existing high-tech materials, E-carbon. An energy source that can clearly support human energy needs but has been quickly stored for decades, nuclear energy. That's right, nuclear energy is completely sealed in the current world, and global energy is completely supported by wind, water conservancy, tidal solar panels, etc. Most of the chemical energy resources, such as coal, oil, and natural gas, are used for thermal power generation. A small amount of purified gas, such as biogas, is allocated as fuel for household kitchens. As for why nuclear energy was sealed up, in the early 22nd century, an unexplained but extremely serious nuclear power plant accident occurred. The whole world quickly and simply entered a state of nuclear panic for the whole people, so that the global government quickly sealed nuclear energy and nuclear weapons. Several large-scale high-intensity wars have occurred in decades after the storage of nuclear energy. The United Nations fell apart, and the major powers were fighting almost in a permutation and combination. Until the rail elevator theory was passed, E-carbon was invented. Peace only came to the world briefly, because the big countries have no money to fight, and almost all their budgets are invested in the construction of rail elevators. Orbital elevator, a concept that was put forward in the 20th century, was praised by scientists in the old century because of its cost-effective orbital material transport capability compared to conventional rockets. But because of the strength of the material and the huge cost of scalp tingling in any major country, it was ignored. Nearly 100 years ago, E-carbon was invented to solve this problem. Various countries united with each other, and the new regime, AEU, and the People's Revolutionary Federation, was established at this time. Now, the reserves of petroleum and coal resources on a global scale have been less than 30 years. And it is close to 20 years before orbital solar power generation facilities are put into use. As for e-carbon, the inventor is unknown. It is derived from the theoretical high-strength carbon nanotubes. The latter are materials that can only be produced in small and medium-scale laboratories and cannot be mass-produced on a large scale. E-carbon, a material that takes into account both productivity and strength, solves the problem of material strength of rail elevators. Even to this day, it is also the top beam and column material for all walks of life, MS load-bearing structure, bearings, key parts armor, rail elevators, high-speed trains, and even heart bypass surgery, prosthesis manufacturing, and so on. High strength, easy to produce, low rejection, high plasticity, dreamlike material, wide application like a certain blue fat man. Similarly, the birth of MS is also related to this universal material. The latest model of the NPC Decrete has a dead weight of close to 160 tons and can run at a speed close to 80 kilometers. Its leg joints are made of e-carbon steel. The impact force received is not less than 400 tons. There is no magical A-carbon, MS can't even take 2 steps, but with A-carbon, MS rises and the chariot almost disappears. The statute style has been in service for nearly 50 years. Now, the Iron Man style has begun to be deployed on a large scale, and its mobility is. System, when did the statute type serve? The design was finalized in 2239, from the north. I mean in the previous life animation. The design was finalized in 2290, the details are unknown. Why is the difference so big? Is there a difference in the innuendo between the worlds? That is the butterfly effect brought by the previous host, please don't care about it, please focus on the current. Is it because my predecessor has become a monkey who only presses buttons? The host, please focus on the present, the host has its own mission in the future. After learning the theory of the MS power module, Ian understood why the previous MS moved like a puppet, because the motor speed and torque are not enough, the speed is not enough if the torque is enough, and the power system that Ian always thought is actually generating electricity. Engine, large diesel generator, not diesel engine. Co-authoring, this is a big step. Recently, the Institute of the People's Revolutionary Federation of China has developed a high-speed and large torque motor and distributed it to the new generation of Iron Man in the latest legal style. Only then did the MS's mobility have quality. The improvement has been increased from more than 30 km per hour with one step at a time to the current running speed of 80 km per hour. As for why the proboscis used in foreign trade can run to 40 km, the armor is filed to less than half of the original. This is not fast and troublesome. This semester, Ian designed 2 new guns based on the structure of several classic revolver guns. The MS uses 4 75mm Gatling cannons and the base and ships use 6 75mm Gatling cannons. Equipped with armor-piercing incendiary bombs, air-to-air shot bombs, prefabricated fragment bombs, armor-piercing high-explosive bombs, etc. The armor-piercing bomb has a penetration depth of 300 mm for 1 km. For MS, the gun has a rate of fire of 4,200 rounds/min, and the base uses a rate of fire of 6,000 rounds/min. At the end of the semester, I sent the design drawings to my tutor, Mr. Wang, and Ian paused the design of the weapon and started the design of the MS body, a next-generation MS equipped with a large cylindrical fan power device. First, Ian built a 78 Yuan Ancestor Gundam head in 2,270 Canadian dollars, and then built a Yuan Ancestor body. Well, he directly built an O Gundam out. Then, based on the existing shape, he began to draw design drawings. Fill the existing shell with the mechanical structure that it should have. A summer vacation has passed. Looking at the Gundam's head, which is filled with radar sensors and the Vulcan cannon cooling device, and because of the different radars installed on the top of the head, it looks like a tumor on the skull. Ian grabbed a handful of hair and fell into contemplation. Then a phone call from my own tutor interrupted this meditation. Xiao Yi, the prototypes of the Bombardment Iron Man and the Iron Man Spider that you conceived before are going to be tested. Come and watch it together. There will be a service ceremony for the Air Defense Iron Man in a month. The old men of us think that you should be called on. With his code name, do you have any ideas? The big name exclamation point, how about the nickname? Not very good, what do you mean by your nickname? When I was watching the shooting experiment on the spot, I only had time to say the decree on the opposite side and it broke. Your nickname is straightforward, and the exclamation mark is not bad, so let's use your nickname. When I arrived at North Industries, I entered the office of Mr. Wang and found that several old men were already sitting in the office and drinking tea. Little Wawa, you have assigned me many tasks this year. The new artillery that shells the Iron Man has to be fired, the fire control has to be restarted, the MS center of gravity is redetermined, and the walking mechanism of the Spider Iron Man is set up this year. I haven't stopped. I finally got a holiday. You sent 2 more cannon tests. We have to work for a while. An old man drank tea and happily complained. But your new cannon is strong enough. Deo. It's a pity that now the Navy, Army, and Space Forces are all confused by the performance of your previous 155 rapid-fire guns. No one wants to buy them except for the symbolic reservation of a small batch of MS troops as an aid to air defense firepower. It was originally a hand practice thing. The teacher arranged for the real artillery test to be very unexpected, but we can castrate this thing and sell it to third world countries to earn some money. For example, the artillery shells can't penetrate our Iron Man, but they can penetrate those fragile skin-flying MS or something. Sure, I'll go back and let my students think about it. Little Wawa's heart is very active. Okay, don't hold up Xiao Ai's stinky feet. I'm old and leave. Let's go to the experimental field first. We are in white coats. Xiao Ai will find someone to borrow a uniform. A reporter will come today. The group of people arrived at the proving ground, and was beaten by the reporters who had been waiting for a long time, mixed with a bunch of old pedants, Ian, who was different in appearance and clothes from the others. It is even more importantly taken care of. A small viewing platform was temporarily set up next to the test site, which was filled with weapons experts and reporters from the country and from all over the world. The first experiment was the Iron Man Spider. On the outer wall of a huge concrete column over 100 meters high, there were 2 E-carbon steel cables hanging from the Iron Man Spider. The Iron Man used for rail elevator defense, commonly known as the Iron Man Spider, removes the leg components and replaces the cable car assembly. The vertical movement on the outer wall of the rail elevator can be achieved through 6 sets of large pulleys and 2 steel cables. The maximum speed can reach 160 km per hour. Each hand is equipped with a 155 mm rapid-fire gun, and each shoulder is equipped with 3 4PIECE missile launchers. Please see the demonstration of mobility and firepower below. The Iron Man Spider climbed up and down on the steel cable, and then used the rapid-fire cannon to shoot down the target drones in the air, and shot down 26 of the 50 drones. The subsequent salvo of anti-aircraft missiles even attacked the subsequent 24. All unmanned drones were shot down. Reading www.yukanshu.com. Later on the show was my country's latest artillery type MS, commonly known as a siege hammer. Its main gun is a 300 mm 100 caliber multistage accelerated artillery. It uses ordinary high-explosive shells with a range of 60 km and uses armor-piercing shells to penetrate at a distance of 5 km. 3,000 mm thick armor plate. Then the fire flashed and the shelling Iron Man shot. 2 seconds later, the 3,000 mm armor block 5 km away also burst out with a fire, and then a camera broadcast live showing the armor block that was penetrated. Then the 5 thugs scoured from overseas were lined up in a row, and the shelling Iron Man fired again, and all 5 thugs were interrupted by the waste. The people from the National Revolutionary Union in the stands were excitedly applauding and taking pictures, while people from the other 2 countries were obviously unsightly. For AEU, the mob style is still the main force in the country, and the people they are equipped with are not as good as the mob style. Sturdy. Followed by the protagonist of this show, the cutting-edge MS, anti-aircraft Iron Man, ! With a 4-armed 155mm rapid-fire gun on the upper part, and 2 155mm rapid-fire guns in the hand, with amazing firepower configuration. Please see its firepower display below. As soon as the voice fell, I saw 20 mob and joint formations flying in the distance. People who can't laugh at all can't laugh at all, but the AEU guys who were dark and dying at first have normal faces. Everyone who makes a fool of themselves will not care about themselves. The 2 Iron Man exclamation marks are ready for shooting, arms are raised, and the overhead cannons are also raised. After a few seconds, they start shooting. After 3 rounds of 10-second long shots, all the flying MS turned into wreckage and fell to the ground, and in the stands, only people from the National Revolutionary League were cheering. Because, both AEU and MS development ideas have to be changed. In the environment where there have been conflicts on the border, Ian has completed 4 years of university studies. Although he only has less than a third of his time to study in school, Ian has been working in the MS development company under Narinko for the rest of the time. The department assists or presides over the development of new MS. Includes, but is not limited to, the upgrade of Iron Man's armor and electronic equipment, the development of triathlon pilot escape equipment, the development of Flying Iron Man, High Mobility Iron Man, and the development of Space Iron Man. Out of evil interest, Ian developed a weapon system for Iron Man during this period, which was widely praised by various MS units and bad reviews by various logistics support units. For example, a shoulder shield for air defense is equipped with 2 4GANG missile launchers and a 70 UBE 30mm gun with a fire control system for short-range air defense and anti-missile. Firepower suppressed shoulder shield, equipped with 460 mounted 122mm rocket launchers or 175mm 4-barrel Gatling cannon. Long-range suppressed shoulder shield, equipped with 212 UNIT 300mm rocket launchers or double-unit short-range ballistic missile launchers. Attack shield system, which enlarges the legal handheld shield. 2 155 rapid-fire guns are integrated inside the shield. The front part of the shield is the tip of a fixed high-carbon spear. There are also 3 2 UNIT 300ml rocket launchers similar to those mounted on the calf, and 3 UNIT 1200mm rocket launchers. A 70mm rocket launching nest hung on the thigh. A 20mm cannon mounted on the forearm. There are additional armor and reactive armor that can be attached to the whole body. All of a sudden, the MS units of the People's Revolutionary Federation of China became steadfast heavy firepower enthusiasts at the same time as their tactics blossomed. When they encountered an enemy, they would suppress firepower. They would apply for long-range firepower suppression if they failed. They were bombed together, but they were destroyed if they failed to explode. They ejected to escape and went back to change the body and then went back to bomb. So in the conflict zone, the RCRC troops have accumulated a large number of veteran pilots with rich practical experience. In Ian's THRE-step cycle of learning, shooting, and development, the time came to 2281. In this year, Ian's old classmate Lieutenant Colonel Makarov Smirnov and his brother Sergei Major Smirnov was dropped into the Tianzu of the RCRF rail elevator, and appointed the Marine Corps Type Iron Man Development Director and the Tianzu Garrison Commander respectively. And Ian is now presiding over the development of all-field Iron Man. The following year, the Tianzu rail elevator of the NPC was about to be completed. The RIGC announced to the outside that it would completely stop the use of fossil fuels and stop all crude oil imports. The RIGC will use solar power generation systems throughout the country. At the same time, in Taklamakan and other regions, we will build urban solar power generation systems codenamed Artificial Sun. The oil-producing forces could not stand the situation of being abandoned, and after actively negotiating with the Federation of People's Revolution, they brazenly launched a war, known as the Solar Power War in history. Millions of troops have been assembled in North Africa, West Asia, Central Asia, and nearly 1,000 milliseconds units launched a full-scale attack on the National Revolutionary League. Then faced with the Iron Man heavy cavalry wearing additional armor and holding two large offensive shields, the monkey version of the decree style of the Middle East countries fell into an embarrassing situation that could not be beaten. The 3-3 system was the combat team, which directly opened the skirmish line and carried the firepower of the old 200 mm 25 caliber smoothbore gun, and advanced while strafing. The advantage brought about by the generational difference in equipment, in exchange, is that the People's Revolutionary Federation is advancing the front with almost zero casualties. Behind the crossfire line, there are two Iron Man anti-aircraft in a group, which also takes into account the tasks of ground scanning, air surveillance and shooting down aircraft. If there is an aircraft or flying MS, or the front line is equipped with an anti-air shoulder shield. Shot down directly or shot down by the anti-aircraft Iron Man, for a time, only flying Iron Man acting as a mobile unit patrolled the sky. On the first day of the war, the People's Revolutionary Front moved forward more than 300 kilometers. If it were not for lack of ammunition, the frontline MS driver claimed to be able to push all the way to the African Tower. In response to this, a certain Minister of Defense of the National Revolutionary League, who did not want to be named, said that the armed parade was very successful. So, the first day of the Solar Power War was also called an armed march. Faced with the unstoppable offensive of the Federation of the People's Revolution, the old Middle Eastern forces retreated all their heavy equipment to the sea, and gathered their last forces to attack the Tianzhu of the Federation of the People's Republic of China. The land warfare turned into a security war with terrorist attacks as the core, a war of public opinion. So far, unless the People's Revolutionary Federation conducts a massacre operation, the MS troops are almost useless. A large number of infantry troops entered the city to maintain law and order. At this time, the National Revolutionary League has not yet realized that the goal of the old Middle Eastern forces is to attack the Tianzhu. After all, if they want to attack the orbital elevator, the African Tower of AEU is in Central Africa. Why bother to go to the Solomon Islands to attack? Then, the old Middle East forces came and assembled almost all the heavy weapons and equipment that could come over, including nearly 100 combat ships, nearly 1,000 older combat aircraft, more than 1,500 landing ships and nearly 2,000 milliseconds, in order to assemble so many combat ships. The unit, the old Middle Eastern forces, drew out the wallet of the last prince. Urgently purchased a large number of retired MS and ships from AEU in high prices, and hired a large number of mercenaries who were not afraid of death. Even the friendly businessmen of the two major countries will convert the MS that still has no driver into an unmanned MS for free. Then 2 days before the start of the attack, this group of foreign friends ran away by plane, and also sold the offensive plan of the old Middle Eastern forces to the National Revolutionary Federation for a friendly price for $1, and then the intelligence personnel of the National Revolutionary Federation touched to kill. He patted his and returned to their respective headquarters and went back to life. More than 10 minutes later, the National Revolutionary Federation issued an emergency mobilization order. First, all the long-range transport planes carried the maximum supplies to Tianzhu, and after unloading the supplies, they retreated with a full load of civilians. Second, the slow cargo ships carry MSS and set off at the fastest speed. Third, after the return of the naval fleet, they will set off in units of squads to go to the combat sea area. Fourth, lease and requisition all high-speed ocean-going vessels within the contactable range to go to the sky column to evacuate personnel. 35 minutes after the emergency mobilization order was issued, the Tianzhu stationed in the aviation brigade to meet the enemy, the fighter unit shot down several times its own enemy and then all died. After the bomber unit dropped bombs, the bomber unit implemented impact tactics and all died. 5 minutes after the crash of the last plane of the Tianzhu Aviation Brigade, the New Guinea base-stationed aviation squadron met the enemy. 15 minutes later, all crew members were killed. At the same time, the mixed formations of several aviation groups that took off from Australia arrived in the combat airspace to meet the enemy. At this time, the Tianzhu Aviation Group had only one early warning aircraft remaining in the distance to provide electronic support. 3 hours after the emergency mobilization order was issued, all the anti-aircraft Ironmen and artillery Ironmen of the Australian garrison joined the Tianzhu garrison. 4 hours after was issued, the Australian garrison removed the most basic local defence forces, and all MS entered the Tianzhu line of defence. 6 hours after the issue, the Australian garrison air force lost more than 80%, and the naval force, Flying Iron Man, High Manoeuvring Iron Man, went into battle. 8 hours after was sent out, the air force from the People's Revolutionary Federation's homeland arrived and went into combat after a short rest. At this time, the main fleet is expected to arrive in 5 days. 12 hours after the issue, the Australian garrison and naval forces lost more than half, the high manoeuvring triathlon flight triathlete forces all lost, and the aviation force lost more than Onet heard. The only news that boosted morale was the low orbit station report, which observed that about a quarter of the enemy troops were unable to fight. 24 hours after the start of the battle, the old Middle Eastern forces forced a landing battle, and the Tianzhu garrison army received the enemy. At this time, the Tianzhu garrison force has more than 300 Marine Ironmen, 30 new-style interchangeable Ironmen, 60 anti-aircraft Ironmen, 30 artillery Ironmen, lack of aviation combat capability, and trial production of marine amphibious Ironmen with naval combat capability. 10 stages. After the start of the landing battle, it was directly intensified. The remnant aviation forces of the old Middle Eastern forces hit and destroyed the artillery Iron Man that could threaten the landing ship. Then it was torn apart by the intensive artillery fire of the anti-aircraft Iron Man. The land warfare Iron Man also suffered heavy losses. The old Iron Man armor was unable to defend against the firing of the 200mm smoothbore gun many times. The new Iron Man was mostly installed on the Asian and European fronts, performing armed parade operations and confrontation tasks with AEU, only a few in Australia. Batch installation. This batch of new type Iron Men all changed into heavy cavalry suits, fighting fires everywhere as a heavy fighting force, and even pushed the front to the beach for a while. But after being dragged by the enemy MS troops, he was killed by naval gunfire. In the command headquarters, the two brothers Makalov and Sergei stood upright and commanded. The 2nd Squadron of the 3rd Squadron retreats. It cannot be defended there anymore. It retreats to build the 3rd line of defense. The 1st Squadron covers the 2nd Squadron. Taking advantage of the enemy's temporary retreat, hurry up and build temporary fortifications. MS who does not need maintenance will help. The infantry digs trenches. Don't know how to dig it? Use your beloved spear tail to draw a line on the ground. Major Smirnov, do we have a reserve team? Without Lieutenant Colonel Smirnov, there was no such thing from the beginning. It has been dead for 50 hours. The Air Force and Navy in Australia have almost been lost. The remaining forces are still harassing the enemy. Now there are only 42 old Iron Men in the remaining forces. UU reading www.yunsha.com. Taiwan and Taiwan are injured. 11 Taiwan. Anti-aircraft Iron Man, all the gun barrels need to be replaced, and they are now working. Makarov pursed his lips. The only good news is that the medium-range ballistic missile that Ian urgently manufactured in North Industries has repelled the enemy and is now in low orbit. The station reported that the support troops from the homeland were already on the way. The 12 large transport aircraft of the Vanguard are expected to arrive within an hour, but they must first break through the air defense nets of more than 30 remaining enemy air defense destroyers. Let them join the large forces to come back to support. What can up to 12 MSS do? Roll back and don't come to death. Report that the low orbit station transfers communications and is a transport plane supporting the troops. Come in. Then Ian's face appeared on the center screen. Yeah, Major Smirnov, I'm here to send support. Are you moved? What did a researcher come to the front line to do? Pop. Your brother, I am also a researcher. Yesterday, I shot down 6 proboscis and were ejected. You only knocked down 2 of them and were retired. That's right, because Ian personally designed it. Several academicians picked up on the excellent performance of the escape system named Anyway, and a large number of MS drivers survived. As long as the Air Force above Tianzhu was not blown up on the spot, Jikan was forced to eject and escape. I brought 6 next-generation MSS and 6 emergency self-propelled guns. It should be able to withstand for a while. Ah, the enemy moved, and they came from the north. Judging from the orbital observation data, it should be the last wave. Up. Looking at the red dots that represent the enemy, all moving, Sergei let go of the style clasp speechlessly, wondering if this is the last wave after watching this whole family's wave of waves. The whole army is ready to fight, the time for the decisive battle has arrived. Coastline, see the coastline. Through the trial of the external monitor of the unmanned high-speed transport aircraft, Ian saw the burning island under the Tianzhu. Oh my God! Listening to the temporary subordinates whispered in exclamation, and then listening to them see the gradual rise of the battle-damaged list of heartbeats and thick breathing, Ian had gradually calmed down because of the restlessness of the first time on the battlefield. The rest is the self-confidence brought by self-confidence in his body and the calm mentality brought by being a researcher mechanic for a long time. The task will be assigned below. You 11 people, the Iron Man in the whole field will hunt the enemy targets in groups of 3 people, and the 5 Fighting Wolf will cooperate to kill the enemy targets. You are not familiar with the body, so don't enter the fighting battle easily. Colonel Vasti, Fighting Wolf has not yet conducted a firing test, the ballistic data of the artillery. Major Lin, it's a tradition to adjust shooting parameters during wolf fighting. There is a tradition in history, although it is the history of other worlds. I'm looking for dense locations for enemy units to test the combat data, and now let's hunt them freely. After that, I set the course, ignited the 2 external rocket engines, and the transport aircraft accelerated further. Major, the 3rd line of defense has been breached, and the final line of defense has not yet been assembled. The enemy MS Group 40 machines broke in. Let the nearest squad go up. Death will also die on the road for me. Makarov issued a search command on the center console, and his eyes widened when he saw a name in the MS team above him. Hey Sergei! That team is Hilly's. Was silent for a long time, Sergei stroked the light spot representing his wife with trembling fingers. She is also a military. The friendly transport plane crashed in front of the enemy team. The enemy's 6 MSS were destroyed and 3 were seriously injured and lost combat capability. This is Colonel Ian's landline. Fuck. The 2 Smirnovs who were frightened by the ups and downs both spoke Chinese. Pulling apart the younger brother who was occupying the podium, Makarov started looking for Ian's name on the list of friendly forces. Don't die. The friendly forces recognize the signal, and all the 12 support aircraft are alive. 11 aircraft are on the outskirts of the island, of which 5 aircraft fired on the enemy, and the 6 aircraft began to penetrate the battle zone in the 3 aircraft squad mode. There is no enemy. Colonel Ian's aircraft cut into the battlefield at a speed of 400 km per hour. Now slowing down, I expect to arrive at Hilly's team in 1 minute. At the crash site, the opponents who were about to encounter were simultaneously plunged into confusion. Hilly's team reacted a little bit faster. Retreat, keep your distance, shoot. The first shot once again defeated the enemy's 4 MSS. The old Middle Eastern forces that were sobered by the MS's explosion also began to counterattack. A huge tank airdrop platform rushed out of the jungle in the direction of the flying, hitting 3 proboscis and then stopped in a group of proboscis. Papa! 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 Pop! A few explosions sounded, the explosive bolts of the airdrop frame detonated, the vehicle was physically unlocked, and the movement was free. It's just that the huge self-propelled cannon above hasn't moved for a long time. Several long-nosed sets shot at the silent fighting wolf with the idea of not firing 2 shots first, but the shells could only leave shallow pits in the armor or be bombed. At the same time, Makarov in the headquarters called out loudly on the radio for Ian, who was unconscious due to the huge impact. Finally, Ian was awakened by the shock of the cannonball explosion. As the driver became sober, the silent behemoth's engine roared. Through the surrounding screens, Ian, who discovered that he was still under attack in the center of the enemy line, was taken a big jump. The trial-made brainwave sensing device faithfully reflected Ian's reaction to excavations that should have been used for excavation. The shovel stretched out quickly to smash the 2 proboscis cockpits, and then took the opportunity to deform. The upper body changed from protruding to standing, and then the 4-armed 80mm cannon began to fire at the enemy, and at the same time quickly reversed. In other words, I was so scared that I just slapped back and ran away. It was just this slap that instantly smashed more than 6 milliseconds. Ian, who finally reacted, stepped on the brake and stopped the car, concentrated, and fired with a 300mm main gun while strafing. A minute later, only 3 MS and 1 self-propelled artillery of the Liberation Revolutionary League were left on the scene, and the remaining enemies were all turned into wreckage. With both hands away from the joystick, Ian exhaled, "Fuck me, scared to death. You still scared us to death." The colonel was in a coma at the crash site and the body was faster than your brain. And what kind of monster you are, armor-piercing bullets fired at 0 range can't penetrate. Makarov was obviously in a panic on the channel. Still panting heavily. "My machine is a special machine made temporarily. The upper body of the Iron Man is replaced by the experimental E-carbon alloy armor. Although it is only 150 mm, it is equivalent to 10 times the conventional armor plate. The body is temporarily manufactured, and the whole body is 900 mm. The armor is equipped with E-carbon coating, which is equivalent to 1500 mm armor. Our own weapons are struggling to strike. We don't have time to modify the guns that fit the size. We just don't install the hands and install the cannon, which is quite easy to use." In the distance, the temporary subordinates driving Wolf Fighter saw that Wolf Fighter could still play like this, and they all deformed, shooting and charging with their arms. All of a sudden the enemy was beaten and completely disintegrated and fled. Ian saw that the enemy had been defeated, and was too lazy to pursue it. He retreated to a hillside with a sniper that had not surrendered. It was not until the enemy forces that were no longer active near the Tianzu that the commander of the Tianzu garrison force had been standing in front of the command platform for more than 70 hours before Major Sergei Smirnov announced that we have won. After defending, the fighting of all units stopped. People who were still able to search and rescue the wounded were counted as one comrade who could be rescued. Then he fell into a coma while sitting at the command platform. 74 hours and 23 minutes after the emergency mobilization order was issued, the NPC has killed more than 30,000 people, lost more than 400 milliseconds, more than 300 combat aircraft of various types, and more than 40 combat ships including 4 aircraft carriers. Won the victory of the Tianzu Guard battle. About 30 hours later, the main fleet of the RCRC arrived to carry out medical rescue work. After discussion, the RIGF government decided to annex the Middle East. After 24 hours, the RIGF army advanced to the AEU border and rested on the spot. After discussing with the local government or famous families, the governments of the Middle East countries were disintegrated, the Middle East Coalition government was established, and the Alliance for Human Innovation was joined. A few days later, when Ian saw that among the countries that had joined the RIGF, there were the Republic of Kyrgyz and Azerbaijan, and that the RIGF dispatched several construction corps and several large enterprises to modernize countries in the Middle East. Ian has no hope of finding a fool. The solar power war ended quickly within a month, beginning with comedy and ending with heroism. All the survivors who participated in the Tianzu defense battle, except Ian, were upgraded to 1 level, and the Tianzu garrison was re-established with the survivors as the backbone, and in order to prevent such incidents from happening again. The People's Revolutionary Federation of People's Republic of China built a large number of permanent fortifications within 150 kilometers of the Tianzu. As for Ian, a civilian soldier of the National Revolutionary League is not an admiral, and Ian still has a bachelor's degree and cannot allow him to serve as an academician. After consulting Ian's personal opinion, his superiors have improved Ian's personal profile without changing his job title. Treatment, while recording the military merits of the military attaché. At present, he is the only civilian ace pilot of the National Revolutionary League. The other is Colonel Makarov, who shot down 6 enemy planes in the Tianzu defense battle. The time came to 2292. During these 10 years, Ian perfected the Fighting Wolf series heavy tank, and then sews and repairs the Iron Man series, without launching a new design of MS. On the one hand, there is overall peace in the world. On the other hand, there has been no more powerful power source. The power of the diesel engine and battery of the Iron Man series limits the potential of this model. Ian, who feels that no new ideas can be found no matter how hard he is, applied for a vacation with his superiors and went to the Himalayas to climb the snow-capped mountains. Then, Ian came across the more powerful power source he had always wanted, a very high Gundam. Oh Gundam! The mule in front of me is obviously younger than the mule in the play. I mean, Livones, who is a lot younger than Livones, has not the temperament of the old man. On the contrary, he is a lot more irritable. This invitation should be 10 years ago in solar power generation. It was delivered to you after the war, but we waited for 10 years, 10 years. How did you manage to not leave the R&D base of North Industries for 10 years? For 10 years, you reading www.uuganshu.com, your only online shopping record is all models. Do you have no material requirements? Recalling the life of the past 2 decades, watching movies in the dormitory, watching animations and making models, learning things in the system and doing exercises, following the instructor to learn things and doing exercises. The clothes are all military uniforms after entering the university, and after entering the research institute. I added a white coat. Eating is all in the cafeteria. There is everything to eat in the cafeteria and it's better than other restaurants. No. Confidently. JPG. Then the young version of Livones on the opposite side is even more irritable. Well, maybe it is aggrieved. I want to find someone who hasn't been out of the house in 10 years. You still know where this person is and can't get in. So angry. JPG. Back to the institute, Ian said to his tutor, the world is so big, I want to see it. Academician Wang, who has been promoted to the director of the North Industrial Research Institute, also said euphemistically, you are treason if you cross the border, and then you die. I can pass technical information back. Is it worth it? Expected to lead the world for 30 years. Let me consider it. After Ian went out, Mr. Wang thought for a while and picked up the phone. Lao Zhang? My old Wang, you weren't doing quantum entanglement communicators before. Are there any samples? Oh, that's it. Give me 2 sets. What's the purpose? Then you can ask the comrades of the Secret Bureau. That's it. Hello, is it the old Chen of the Intelligence Bureau? Come to me, let me tell you something. 3 days later, Ian took the communicator in the experiment to the place agreed with Livones. The next day, the National Revolutionary Federation reported that the colonel researcher had fled with secrets, and the Intelligence Bureau began to hunt him down. Arrived at Tianjin's scientific research base in the universe. Under the guidance of Livones, Ian visited this base that integrates scientific research and manufacturing functions. Our celestial organization was established in 2100. Aeolius Schohamberg and his comrades established and led the early celestial organization. Later, when Aeolia died, the celestial organization split. Civil war, but in the end we chose the goal of unity and gradually developed technology according to Aeolian's plan, in order to guide the unity of mankind and prepare for the upcoming dialogue. Listening to Livon's introduction, Ian's mind it also echoed the voice of the system. The celestial organization was established in 2107 after Aeolia's death. It's the butterfly effect again? When did that predecessor come from? The former host was active in the middle and late 21st century. Okay, shut up. This machine understands. The two arrived at Niku. Liphones continued to introduce. Now we have produced 5 Gundams for 2 generations. The first generation, the starting point for everything, is the O Gundam. The second generation, the Special Enhancement Verification Machine, the Goddess of Justice Gundam, the Goddess of Chariots, the Goddess of Stars and the Goddess of Judgment. At the same time, we have already started the theoretical design of the third generation Gundam. Because our designer is a goddess. Please don't laugh at me, Mr. Li Fengzi. A blonde girl floated from behind. Livon smiled slightly dozingly. This is our genius girl, Linda Stewart, who took on part of the MS design task at the age of 12. In the next period of time, you will follow Miss Linda to familiarize yourself with Gundam design style. I believe you will get started soon. Miss Linda, please take Mr. Ian to the reference room. Then I will trouble you to help Mr. Ian learn. After that, Livons turned and left. At this time, Ian looked over Gundam and saw more than a dozen Iron Man Dizzy and Universe Iron Man behind Gonaku, always feeling the style of painting very strange. Ah, then Mr. Ian will go with me. You now have the authority to view all MS and transport ship information. Please understand the structure of Gundam as soon as possible. Gundam is different from the Iron Man you are familiar with. 12-year-old blonde Loli is obviously very confident in the MS she participated in the design. When I arrived in the reference room, Ian sat in front of the computer and quickly immersed himself in the world of the new knowledge system, leaving the blonde Loli aside. Lolita is not as high as it is interesting. JPG Linda sees whether Ian will come ashore from the ocean of knowledge for a while, so she continues her study plan. In the afternoon of the next day, Ian held his PDA and went to Linda Zhang to answer questions that he didn't quite understand. On the 5th day, Ian's learning progress has surpassed Linda. Ian, who was holding a PDA full of problems, began to lead Linda to look for related researchers to answer questions. 3 months later, the puzzle became a discussion, and after another month, Ian became the person who knew Gundam best in this base. Then, Ian went into seclusion. Ian will chat with Linda for a while eating, and spend the rest of the time thinking in the system to deduct the technology with solar furnace and GN particles as the core. Of course, on the surface, Ian is drawing a drawing of a space-armed transport ship, that is, the drawing of Ptolemy II awarded by the system 4 months ago. 6 months later, Ian left the customs and officially took over the design of the third-generation Gundam. Prior to this, Linda and other researchers had basically completed their related theoretical demonstrations. Looking at the familiar appearance of the machine, Ian feels his head is big. The current National Revolutionary Federation is not the one in the play. The first echelon of heaven and humanity that had been deflated in the hands of the National Revolutionary Federation, and using the previous design, I am afraid that it will not survive the Trinity appearance. Have you considered the current MS strengths of various countries, especially the new type of MS from the National Revolutionary League? We tested the Gundam armor using the 155mm artillery and 300mm artillery currently installed by the People's Revolutionary Federation, and armor-piercing shells. Even at a distance of 0, the new E-carbon armor cannot be penetrated. Have you tested the armor-piercing projectile? Armor-piercing bullets. A shell that uses a metal jet as an armor-piercing method. According to calculations, the 155 mm armor-piercing projectile is as powerful as the GN machine gun of the Chariot Goddess, while the 300 mm caliber armor-piercing projectile is close to the single-shot beam rifle of the Goddess of Justice. It should be uncomfortable to bombard the Iron Man to set fire. The corresponding target I designed for that thing is to equip the special armor with E-carbon steel armor. In other words, the armor of Gundam is not invincible. Don't use armor to resist the firepower of the JGF. However, even if the armor-piercing projectile has been developed for nearly 20 years, the People's Revolutionary Federation has not installed it on a large scale, because the MS in other countries can handle it even with ordinary armor-piercing projectiles. Considering that the existing artillery armament of the RIGF was designed by the one in front of him, the researcher sitting there didn't really want to take care of the boastful master. Then we assign tasks now. Those who are good at GN position, please raise their hands. Okay, your next task is the miniaturization of GN position shields. I initially require that all the Gundam physical shields be covered with GN position shields. The final request is it is Gundam that can be covered with GN stand shield on the surface. Which ones are good at MS power system? Okay, did you find that the movement of the limbs of the German angels is slower than that of the Iron Man? The torque is not enough and the speed is not enough. Research and development higher speed motors. Those who are good at weapon systems are divided into two groups. One group develops the next generation of long-range weapons, the other group develops short-range weapons. The long-range weapon group reduces the size of the German Angel's GN rocket launcher and increases the rate of fire. It will give you such a long time to accumulate power. The short-range weapon team continues to deepen the current project. At the same time, cooperate with the long-range weapon team to develop a beam rifle that can form a beam saber on the muzzle. The sensor team continues the existing work. The MS design team is also divided into two groups. One group redesigned the third-generation Gundam with me, and the other group optimized the weapons of the second-generation Gundam. Now disbanded. Looking at the design drawing of an angel with only one gun, one shield, and 7 swords, Ian seemed to have seen the future fool that was blocked by the casualty Iron Man troop with a 155 mm rapid-fire cannon, and then he was shelled by the Iron Man and the Fighting Wolf. The 300 mm gun found a chance to hit the ground. Forget it, eat one bite at a time, let's start with being an angel. When Ian and the Tianren research team were struggling to correspond to the People's Revolutionary Federation, which is a generation and a half advanced than the original MS, and its firepower is several times stronger. The time came to 2301. In this year, the Revolutionary War of Independence broke out in the Middle East, and several countries led by Azerbaijan declared independence and separated from the Federation. The local garrison was killed by assassinations and collective poisoning, and a large amount of combat equipment was robbed. At the same time, countries such as Azerbaijan and Kyrgyz announced the launch of jihad and attacked each other. The dramatic development made the Revolutionary League unprepared. The NKVD troops that took the initiative to attack would be attacked by both sides, but the NKVD troops who withdrew from the crossfire would not be attacked, and the opposite sides would continue to use their brains. In the end, the National Revolutionary Federation decided to wait until both sides were injured before entering the battlefield. At this time, the Celestial Organization also decided to take the opportunity to conduct the first actual combat test. The engine body was fully armored, and the driver live owns Almac. Full armor O Gundam body is equipped with additional armor with a trial-made miniaturized GN stand shield generator on the outside of the joints. The rear backpack carries 2 beam sabers, and the forearm armor is equipped with 2 GN beam rifles, each of which is mounted on the outside of the armor. A GN shield, holding 2 GN rifles with beam sabers underneath. A 3-2 UNIT GN missile launcher is mounted on the CAF and externally mounted on the armor. In order to cope with the increased weight, additional GN thrusters are attached to the calf, the inner side of the back skirt and the sides of the backpack. Seeing this Gundam armed to the teeth, Livon's usual indifferent expression couldn't be stretched. The corners of his eyes twitched and turned back to ask Ian, is it too exaggerated? The opponent is just a trivial Iron Man. Hearing that his work was hacked, Ian raised an eyebrow. Oh? Really, someone removed the external armor and sent the son down to death. Of course, no one cares about Ian, who is close to 40 and hasn't been in full shape, but Livon's, who has an expression of "you will die without this outfit," suddenly feels that Gundam's plan is overwhelming the existing military system. The MS of sexual performance advantage has lost absolute confidence. 3 hours later, Li Fengzi, who reached the target airspace, deployed the Angel Wings system, which interfered with communications across all bands. Sniping the enemy MS at 1,500 meters above the battlefield, Livon's was so bored that he even wanted to sing a song. There is no one who can fight, and as expected, Gundam still has an absolute advantage. Successfully rescued a young soldier who was about to die under the muzzle of the MS. Livon saw the young man's eyes looking at Gundam through high-performance sensors. What a pure look! Send the boy's location and appearance to the base, and let the agents of the Celestial Organization bring him back to the base. Livon's entered the second phase of the actual combat experiment of armed intervention, single machine suppression of the military base. On the way to the base, Livon's began to understand the meaning of Ian's expression. He encountered 12 Ironmen with heavy cavalry suits and 4 Ironman Peaches with dual 75mm 40 UBE Gatling, 12 the 48 155mm rapid-fire guns held by the Taiwanese land warfare. Iron Man forced Livon's to dodge with maximum effort throughout the entire process. The huge overload made him grit his teeth and say no. Talking. Gundam evaded a burst of fire, and quickly rose into the sky. Livon's quickly locked all the land warfare Ironmen, threw out all 64 GN missiles, and then quickly avoided the next wave of fire coverage. Yu Guang saw the state of the missile. 47 were shot down? Are the Iron Men of the National Revolutionary Federation are monsters? Fortunately, the remaining missiles completed their mission and destroyed 9 Iron Man. Taking advantage of the enemy's chaos, adjust the flying posture of the rifle to shoot at 3 points and fall to the remaining 3 Iron Men. There are 4, Nanny. The Iron Man Momoko, who had been harassing on the edge of the battlefield at the beginning of the encounter, did not know when he had reached the vicinity of Gundam, lit the beam sword hung under the rifle, and waved the gun with his left hand to push back. Taiwan Iron Man Dizzy shot it down with his right hand. The remaining 3 Iron Man Peaches set fire to Gundam rifles. Cut. Discarded the rifle with only the grip, the double-armed beam rifle switched to the rapid-fire mode, used the barrage to force the 3 Iron Peaches back, and increased the thrust to pull the distance away. During several hours of battle, several of the small GN stand shield generators that were tried out had failed offline. The 75mm shells fired from a distance hit the body by themselves, and the continuous vibration caused more equipment to malfunction. Livon switched the beam rifle to single-shot mode, resisting the enemy's artillery fire and knocking down the remaining 3 Iron Man Peaches. Carried out a system self-inspection and looked at the results of several parts turning red and a dozen parts turning yellow. His face was livid. This is Gundam. The body is moderately damaged, and more than half of the weapon is lost. The battlefield judges that the second phase of the mission cannot be completed. Request a return. Received, please return from Route 7. 15 minutes after Gundam returned to the flight, an investigation team consisting of 4 high-output Iron Man Dizzy, an early warning flying Iron Man and a small transport aircraft arrived at the scene of the firefight. The early warning aircraft continued to cruise and monitor, and the rest quickly recovered the enemy aircraft fragments and the Iron Man's black box. The leader of the investigation team was Technical Colonel Makarov. The staff headquarters confirmed the appearance of the high-performance MS on the spot, and the weapon was confirmed to be a high-energy particle weapon, which is consistent with the prediction report left by Colonel Vasti. The debris and black boxes left by the enemy aircraft are now being recovered. The remote sensing satellite showed that a third-party aircraft was approaching. Avoid contact, and return quickly. Understand? Take back the team and return. Less than 5 minutes after landing, the investigation team quickly lifted off and returned. Before leaving, each MS grabbed as many Iron Man wrecks as possible on the ground. Feng En report, arriving at the destination, there are traces of MS coming, suspected to be leaked. Do you want to pursue it? What arrived at the scene was the fast goddess of the Chariot Gundam. The radar is interfered, there should be an early warning aircraft. No, the equipment of Goddess Gundam is not enough to deal with the rapid reaction force of the National Revolutionary League. Let's go back. The screen goes to the base of the Celestial Angel City. Seeing the explosion marks all over the body, the attached armor is tattered, the palm of the hand is directly blown up, the insiders of the base have leaked the expression of collapse, and the most collapsed is the Kyrgyz boy who arrived at the base first. Angel. At this time, Ian has just arrived at Naku, is checking the replay of the battle, nodding constantly. I don't know whether he is lamenting Livon's excellent driving skills or lamenting his own Iron Man's excellent performance. Ian, those Iron Men. The walking position is rigid with the precision shooting, and the precision is not afraid of death, right? Livon's, whose face is still ugly, nodded in affirmation. Are you the pilots of the Revolutionary Federation of the People's Republic of China dead? Because it is a drone, one of the draft plans I left before I leave, the Unmanned Forcible Reconnaissance Aircraft Squad, is used to forcibly detect the drone units that cannot resist the combat effectiveness of the target, but it seems that the plan is not perfect. There should be 4 high-mobility triathlons carrying 600mm low-recoil rocket launchers as braking hammers, 1 high-altitude reconnaissance drone, and 4 high-mobility combat drones carrying ATACMS missiles. There will even be temporary a retrievable remote sensing satellite launched into the sky. If you guess right, after you return home, there should be an investigation team led by an ace pilot driving a special aircraft and led by an officer above lieutenant colonel to the battlefield to investigate. Seeing Ian's "I'm so awesome" expression, Livon's face became more gloomy without hearing a word. Ian Vasti, how many things have you left behind in the RCEF? A lot of you. But the plan that can pit us is to face the unmatched next-generation MS oversaturation bombing with unmanned MS wave attack, and finally unite the combat plans of all the ace pilots in the world, in the face of wide area interference. The ability enemies search plan and the anti-beam coating development plan for high-energy particle weapons. The rest are the general next-generation weapon development plan and the next-generation MS development plan. Hearing the 3 plans that seemed to be aimed at Gundam, Livon's felt his head widened. I want to beat you, I feel like I can at least vent. Muttered and left Naku again and again in a low voice. This is a good idea. I am also having a headache for the 3rd generation Gundam enhancement plan. Don't you know how tricky the combat system I designed is as an enemy? Hey! Hearing Ian's seemingly complaining words, as a person Livon's, who has experienced how tricky these things are, turned his head and slammed his helmet out at Ian, then punched Ian in the face with a straight punch. Ian pulled off his helmet and saw fists getting closer and closer. He kicked out his right leg at the same time as an iron bridge, and kicked Livon's in the face, hit someone or not the face. Livon's changed his fist into his palm, and flew up to the ceiling by pressing Ian's calves with both hands. With the help of his feet, he kicked out from the ceiling and punched Ian's face again. Ian continued to kick Livon's in the face with a topspin kick. Livon's couldn't handle it and could only cross his hands on his chest, and then was kicked and hit the wall. Livon's, who attacked first and was killed by a spike, lost his temper with a face of broken faith. Why are you a human being physically stronger than me, a changer? Ian flattened his white coat and looked at Livon's with a strange look. It should be written in my file. The physical strength is strong and the reaction nerves are quick. The comrade in charge of the physical examination at the time of the National Revolutionary Federation thought that my physical strength was reached. It's the pinnacle of humanity. Although your changers are also very powerful, they are not out of the scope of human beings. After all, they are only strengthened humans, not superhumans. It's weird to be defeated by me in close combat. But you are just a civilian researcher. I am also an ace driver. In the Tianzi defense battle, I drove the wolf fighting in a close combat and defeated more than 20 milliseconds. Looking at Ian with a curious look, Livons waved his hand tiredly, saying that it doesn't matter if you forget it. Okay, the excitement is over. Let's arrange the next work. First of all, we need more and better solar furnaces. The 5 prototype solar furnaces are simply super technological handicrafts: starting time, particle generation speed, and particle generation. The difference in storage capacity is unexpectedly different. I will lead a team to Jupiter to produce several solar furnaces again, and strive to produce no difference in the new solar furnaces. In this way, my next design can be realized. The second is the evaluation of the 3rd generation driver operation. Veda sent a mission yesterday. The pilot selection was completed before 2305, and the operation officially began in 2307. Third, the Celestial Combat Unit is divided into 2 detachments. The first detachment, using armed transport ships, Ptolemy, and the equipment the 3rd generation of Gundam, is a team under the Spotlight, codenamed Tianren. The second detachment, using a high-speed transport ship, Galileo, performs strategic support missions, and is codenamed Angel. Okay, now I need a volunteer. Go to Jupiter Circle with me. Think, please raise your hands if you go. I'm going. Linda quickly raised her hand, while the other researchers who were ready to move quickly looked away and went to study the ceiling. What's the situation? Okay, Linda, you have to understand that this will be a long 5 years. Go back and think carefully. I will leave in 5 days. I don't want to go to remember to find a replacement. Okay, disband. Passing the crowd, I saw the young man who was still looking at Gundam in a daze. Ian wondered if he didn't have the ability to speak, come and call Livons back, and tell him that the kid he picked up is going to enlighten him. Then turned back and left, preparing to go to the research room to continue the Ptolemy's armed reinforcement plan that stopped halfway. 5 days later, a 150-meter-long high-speed armed transport ship left the Angel City base and headed to the Jupiter Circle. The ship was carrying a large number of supplies and automatic robots, a middle-aged uncle, and a 21-year-old girl. 3 months after Ian left the Earth Circle, thanks to the innovation of production technology, the Tianzi of the People's Revolutionary Federation of China was completed ahead of schedule. It is the 2nd orbital elevator to be completed after the South American Tower. In the same month, the People's Revolutionary Federation announced the complete suspension of fossil fuels and the use of solar power receiving antennas in all regions. Get rid of the limitation of lack of energy. The productive forces of the Federation of People's Revolutionaries have been liberated. The military forces are fully refurbished, the Iron Men of the old generation are completely eliminated, and they enter the arms market of the Third World countries. It can be equipped with Iron Man Peach, and High Mobility Iron Man, which can be quickly installed in various military regions according to tactical needs. In the same year, the Second Solar Power War broke out. Unlike the last time that the Federation of People's Revolutionaries fought against the old Middle Eastern forces alone, this war was a war between the 3 major groups of countries, each with their enemies and limited cooperation. They were equipped with large aircraft carriers, large cruisers, the Eden, a global terrorist organization that uses a large number of MS and Ma in the water. The core idea of Eden is to oppose the construction of orbital elevators, and cannot bear to pollute the earth of the Garden of Eden of mankind by such man-made facilities. 5 minutes after the inauguration ceremony of the Tianzi of the Federation of the People's Republic of China, it declared a holy war to all countries in the world that participated in the construction of orbital elevators, to return the Earth to nature. At the beginning of the war, the Eden assembled 2 large aircraft carriers, 10 large cruisers, 70 amphibious landing ships, and more than 150 milliseconds to raid the NPC Tianzhu. Then, within 2 hours, it was wiped out by the Tianzhu garrison, the surrounding permanent fortifications, and the incoming Australian Air Force. Subsequently, the RCV fleet began to attack its maritime forces in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. After, the Eden people turned to underground activities, fanning the flames everywhere, inciting all conflicts that could be incited: faith, race, ethnicity, separation from unity and independence, etc. Terrorist activities were carried out everywhere, and a roadside bomb was detonated the day after the shooting in a commercial street today. The great powers hate it, but because of the domestic turmoil, they are unable to do so and cannot concentrate on attacking it. As time goes by, all small countries that have not joined the Union of Nations, but all countries that have surplus food on hand, have jointly negotiated with the 3 countries a plan for the construction of solar power receiving equipment. Faced with the deaths of fanatics in one attack after another, most arms dealers refused to sell arms to them, and the people would live and work in peace and contentment without risking new difficulties. The frequency of actions of the Eden organization gradually declined over a period of 2 years. At the same time, due to the liberation of productivity among the major powers, operations have become wild. In 2303, the Special Forces of the Federation of the People's Republic of China raided the AEU scientific research facilities and snatched samples of the newly developed linear artillery, causing dozens of deaths, including tactical forecasts. Lisa, Kyujo's boyfriend. The Cosmic Forces raided the Super Soldier Research Facility in the space colony of the Federation of the People's Republic of China, snatching 40 people including the infant Super Army test body E-57, but the transport boat disappeared 12 hours after returning home. AEU organized a death squad to raid Edward Air Force Base, the latest experimental aircraft battle flag type data, and blow up 4 test aircraft that have been offline. In short, under the premise of a peaceful environment and the people live and work in peace and contentment, the 3 large countries have joined forces to make a pot of porridge in private. After more than half a year of sailing, Ian and the 2 arrived at the sealed production base of the Celestial Sun Furnace Base. Seeing the corpses of Livone's type changers everywhere, Linda returned to the transport ship with an ugly expression, while Ian directed the automatic robots to start cleaning the base. The accident more than half a century ago. It took more than 50 years to accumulate the resources for this Jupiter voyage again. No wonder there are only 5 solar furnaces. The landlord's house has no surplus food. After finishing the work arrangements, Ian returned to the spacecraft. Little girl, don't be scared out of a psychological shadow. In the next 2 months, Ian, with the assistance of Linda, made every effort to repair, rectify, and upgrade the production line of the solar furnace. After arranging the automatic production plan for the solar furnace, Ian continued with his Ptolemy armament plan. Linda began to carry out the main Angel's armed upgrade plan, and unless she was sleeping, she would not leave Ian's side. 3 years later, it became 24 hours a day without leaving Ian. When the time came to 2305, Ian returned to the Earth circle with 3 newly completed solar furnaces. At this time, there was an additional baby, the spacecraft. Returning to the base Angel City, Ian found that the 2nd-generation Gundam was gone. Similarly, all the personnel assigned to the 2nd branch of Celestial Man had left. There were only 5 Gundam drivers that had been selected in the base. 4 Ptolemy bridge personnel, a doctor and a tactical forecaster. Kiadusak, 5 people. After retrieving the information in Veda, Ian learned that in the past few years, the People's Revolutionary Federation has organized a Gundam capture project. The Goddess of Justice Gundam was seriously damaged and almost successfully robbed. The Goddess of Judgment Gundam Sun Furnace was hit, and a large amount of particles leaked in a small area for a short time. The driver Shui Er lost consciousness and has been unconscious. Veda judged that the 4 drivers were unable to complete the first phase of the plan, and considering Ian's excellent performance, it should be possible to manufacture at least 1 solar furnace back, so the 5 drivers were finally selected to perform the task together. In addition, the 5-dimensional skills of the 2 brothers Neil Lair are very similar, so they can use the same machine together in case Ian fails to make the solar furnace. Arrived at Jinaku, the Jinaku once stopped full of MS, now there are only 5 high magnets and piles of replacement modules. 5 pilots were recruited to prepare for a simulated battle to test their expertise and habits, and to make special adjustments to each person's body. As a result, I heard that all the base residents who had fun to watch came. 5 minutes later, all the members of Gundam 00 Ptolemy in the first season arrived, and there were 3 more members who should have appeared in the second season. Ian's mouth twitched and looked at the other members with a clear-minded mood, and finally sighed helplessly. "Come on, you are the first one to get on the simulator, and use the Angel 7 sword to equip it first." Shina nodded and walked towards the simulator with a sullen face. "Mom, how did Livons take care of?" 5 minutes later, the big screen showed that the Iron Man Peach, who was able to be driven by Ian, was subdued by the Angel. Talia, who also had a face collapsed on the side, was obviously darker. In an instant, change. After that, he opened the door of the simulator. After 5 minutes, the GN rocket launcher equipped with the original stone of Tyria's Da Angel was interrupted. 8 minutes later, Tyria was forced to choose a burst armor and played with Nadra Gundam. After 10 minutes, he was subdued. This time, Ian just used a high-carbon spear. "Let's go on with the remaining 3 people, I will drive a high-powered Iron Man Peach." The facial paralysis duo looked at the big screen with a cold face. The screen showed that Ian used the air cushion mode to drive the Iron Mandazi equipped with a heavy cavalry suit to a speed of more than 400 km per hour, and fired 6 rounds of enemy grenades to locate. At the position of the 2 Force Angels, as for the main Angel, flying at an altitude of 2,000 meters, the optical system has long been discovered. Afterwards, Ian used anti-air armor-piercing shotguns at the main Angel for 1 round, then used high-explosive shells and armor-piercing bullets to cover the main Angel's expected evasive direction, then switched to the flight mode with the shield, and the throttle was pushed to the limit. The biggest, crashing into the main Angel at a speed of 1,200 km per hour. On the side of the main Angel, Hallelujah moved in the direction of the dust that was flying when the Iron Mandazi moved, and launched a missile to the Iron Mandazi mobile development, and discarded the tail missile compartment. Then when the approaching alarm sounded, he caught the first round of shotguns, quickly evaded to the right, and was hit by the subsequent high-explosive shells. Just as Hallelujah tried to stabilize his flight attitude, the Iron Man Peach bumped into it. After the impact, the Iron Man kicked on the main Angel's wing, and then shot the front of the main Angel's chest with piercing bullets. After that, the main Angel was declared to have fallen. With the help of the shock wave when the main Angel exploded, the Iron Man quickly pounced on the ground and flew all the way with Snakeskin, quickly approaching a Lee Angel. Lee Angel used the GN sniper rifle several times to shoot but failed, decisively gave up the sniper rifle and switched to the GN pistol. High-speed shooting blocked the Iron Man's walking position. Ian gave up his position and charged forward with his shield and firepower. At the same time, he used 2 155 rapid-fire guns in his right hand to start shooting. The opposite Lee Angel also began to charge. When Iron Man's sight was blocked by the shield, he gave up his left pistol and pulled out the lightsaber, and cut off the 2 rapid-fire cannons in the Iron Man's right hand. The Iron Man also used his left hand to wave the offensive shield and hit Lee Angel's chest. Taking advantage of Lee Angel's loss of control, use the rapid-fire cannon to fire, Lee Angel A judges the explosion. At this time, Lee Angel B had the shooting boundary and began to shoot at the Iron Man. The Iron Man puts a shield on his chest with his right hand, and while doing evasive movements, he shoots at Lee Angel. However, after a few seconds, the left hand's offensive shield system was destroyed by a sniper. Then the Iron Man fired 2 smoke bombs, rushed into the smoke, and continued to fire the remaining smoke bombs at the area between Lee Angel and Iron Man. After more than 10 seconds, the Iron Man rushed out of the smoke at a high speed, instantly locking the position of Lee Angel, staring blankly. The Force Angel rushed into the air. At a high speed approaching 1,000 km per hour, the distance between the two aircraft was only a few hundred meters left. The Sight Angel still chose the sniper rifle against the enemy. Yangzhen said that he guessed it. And then avoided Lee Angel's sniper at a distance of 50 meters, and then the high carbon spear at the front of the attack shield smashed into Lee Angel's cockpit. The Iron Man also announced the explosion in the continuous high-intensity maneuver and final collision. Fought a close simulation battle, and Ian's negative emotions caused by the idiot and the raisin dish were wiped out. Ian's mood now is as good as eating rice. After exiting the hatch, I found that everyone was looking at themselves with the eyes of aliens. Ian, helpless and mad, had to say the sentence again, although I was a civilian soldier before, I am also a human being. The ace driver of the Revolutionary League. Ryle, who is still relatively out of character, said his doubts first. Even if it is the ace driver, my brother and I have killed more than 30 units separately, you are too strong. The people around nodded in agreement. Why didn't you choose you to be the Gundam messenger? I feel that if the Gundam is launched, the 5 of us will not be able to beat you together. Probably because my talents in other areas are more valuable. And the star career of Gundam messenger is obviously more suitable for young people like you. My uncle is better to engage in logistics in the second line. Oh, by the way, uncle, how old are you this year? Ian was visibly taken aback. I was born in 55, and in 2005 this year, I am 50. I am old. Ian's eyes went blank and sighed that life was gone. The other Ptolemies looked at his wife, who was less than 30, his 1-year-old daughter, and at the face he said 28 people believed in, and at the sweaty Neil brothers after nearly half an hour of simulated confrontation. Look at Ian who hasn't sweated anymore. Who of this special mother is a young man? The 24-year-old young woman now changed her name to Lisa Cujo of Emperor Lee Noriega, picked up her hip flask, took a sip, turned her head and left. I'm old. The 23-year-old former mafia member Lasse Ian also sighed and turned away. I'm old. The 19-year-old cyborg Rickadindle Charlie, commonly known as Risty, learned Lasse's actions. I'm getting old. The 12-year-old Philute Grace said that I didn't know anything and left with the Emperor. 20-year-old Christina Sheila said, I think I'm still young. He turned and floated away. Dr. Moreno, in his 60s, said, I think you need a comprehensive physical examination. It was also cheated. As for Linda, my dear is not old. He kissed Ian and hugged the baby and left. The Gundam messenger group of 5, who was good at being abused for a round, expressed panic and wanted to leave with everyone. Then I was stopped by Ian. Brother Neil is temporarily qualified. Take the time to come over and talk about the specific configuration of the equipment. The remaining 3 need special training. At least they have to fight back and forth with me. I haven't finished the simulation combat program. Personally start cooperating training. Okay, Brother Neil, go back and rest. The 3 of you go on the simulator. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com 3 hours later, in the face of Ian's continuous abusive training and high-intensity instructor-style insults, Hallelujah was forced out of even another personality, and then Hallelujah was caught in Alleluia's loud rumors. The fight was worse. 6 hours later, Linda took Ian away on the grounds that the child was going to bed and the father was going to sleep with his daughter. The 3 people who were almost exhausted couldn't help letting out a saved expression. Then he was dragged back to the lounge by 3 other male crew members. Then in the next month, Ian trained 3 rookie Gundam messengers during the day, and in the evening prepared training programs based on the existing military strength of various countries, and took the time to train 2 former ace pilot Gundam messengers. After the completion of the training program, 5 Gundam messengers conducted the first cooperative training, under the command of the tactical forecaster Miss Huang, suppress the RCNG Suez base. The first stage went smoothly. The 5-person team successfully destroyed all the Onjiti MS, but encountered a problem when destroying the hangar in the second stage. The artillery fire in the base's internal fortifications interfered with the operations of the 5-person, and Miss Huang decisively ordered the switch to branch operations. 2 Lee Angels went to clean the fortifications. The remaining 3 Gundams failed to complete the mission within the scheduled time due to the drop in firepower. The Iron Man Heavy Cavalry and the Iron Man ! Began to come out in the hangar, facing the intensive firepower of the 2 types of Iron Man. The Gundam's actions were further delayed until they had to deal with more and more Iron Men. Finally, facing the remaining 15 Iron Man, 9 Iron Man Heavy Cavalry, 5 Iron Man ! 3 Iron Man Justice Hammer and 4 Iron Man Momoko attacked in the base. 5 Gundam messengers were cheering and laughing. Played GG. This time, not only the Gundam messengers can't laugh, but Ian and the Emperor can't laugh. This is the second line base of the National Revolutionary League.